Happy New Year. My name's Michelle. This is my so-called handmade life. I have a blog by the same name, and that is my name on Instagram. On Ravelry, I am Mamatronic, and there is a Ravelry group for my so-called handmade life where I have episode threads, and you can comment there, here on YouTube, or on the blog where I embed episodes. This is a knitting podcast, but I also talk about whatever is going on in my life or what I'm thinking to a degree. And I talk about what you talk about in the comments. So if you leave a comment, be aware I'll probably be sharing either what you said or what it led me to think about in another episode. So I do appreciate those comments. I feel like I should have watched the last two New Year's episodes that I did since I started this podcast, because I feel like I've come a long way. I don't know. As a person, I think many things have happened in my life and I have grown. I'm different, and you're part of that because I've shared bits and pieces of what is happening, or my thoughts, or even just my creative process on simple projects, and you've shared back. And I'm affected by what you share. I learn things. I find new passions, new interests. I've had new things to read. And I've been able to commiserate with you, and you have been compassionate and friendly to me. So I just feel like I'm just grateful for that, for this growth, and you have been a part of it. So I do appreciate your input and all that you share of yourself with me. So I hope you had good celebrations with your family. I told you in the last episode, I took all of your advice to heart on decorating and kind of getting a Christmas spirit in my house when it was a transitional time. I didn't feel like dread or annoyance about the holiday, but I wouldn't say I was real excited about it. I was just more like really tired, constantly trying to, I was making appointments with adjusters, and people were in and out of the house. I was constantly cleaning, handling, keeping the animals in this room or that while people look at things. And then there's the normal stuff of the holidays that you're busy with. After I started implementing some of your suggestions, I really did feel excited about the holiday. And I want to thank you guys for that. When we were little, we would open our gifts, and we didn't get a lot of gifts. Like, I knew so many kids who got so much more, and their parents spent a lot more on them for Christmas. But we were appreciative of the gifts we got, and it was a good haul. It was very balanced, I'll put it that way. And we would open our gifts, and then we would take it all to our room, make our bed, and set our gifts out on our bed. There was always like some pajamas and some practical things, a coat or something we needed, but then new shoes. Then there would be some toys, and my grandparents would come over, and the great-grandmothers would come over for lunch, and we would bring them to our room and show each of them, what we got, and they would, oh, I like that, or that's so pretty. And sometimes they were seeing the gift that they got us for the first time because my mom would buy it for them, and that was really enjoyable. But then, we would go eat, and after eating, we would make polite conversation. We would listen. Sometimes I would play a Christmas song on the piano from a very basic John Sham book, or something like that. And then we were excused to go play with our stuff. Oh, and we wanted to. But like, if I had a friend come over later, I would hide some of the stuff. I felt like most of the people I knew, I got a lot less than most of the people I knew, but there's always somebody who gets even less, than us. And just in case, I just felt weird. I don't like to brag and show stuff off. So that's not what I'm doing right now. You'll see. These are crafty gifts. And I thought that you would be interested in them. And it might even give you ideas of things you might want to make or grow or do. Like my grandmother and her friend, they would have make it, bake it, or grow it Christmas parties with their little Sunday school class. And you could make it, you could bake it, or you could grow it, and it had to be inexpensive. And that way everyone could participate, and it was about creativity and togetherness, not stuff. So I'm just prefacing with that, but I wanted to show you a few gifts that I thought were really interesting and creative. So this is from a company in Asheville, North Carolina. It's called Merging Metals. I actually bought one of these for my daughter with her Christmas gift, but I really liked it, and my husband got this for me with a little help. You know, I helped him out with what I like for Christmas. But this is a actual duck, a mallard feather that the maker's mother has a farm with ducks, and this is an actual feather that was electroformed with copper around or over the original feather. So the shape of it, everything. I thought that was really neat. So it's interesting looking anyway, you can see. But then to know that it's, you know, actually from somebody's duck on their farm, that made it neat to me. I thought it was interesting. And then in that same vein, my daughter, I gave her a necklace. She and her husband gave me this necklace from the maker is Daughter of the Wild on Instagram, Nikki. And I don't think she has an online shop yet, but I think contacting her through Instagram, you can probably, via direct message, order anything you want. And she often shows her wares on Instagram. So this is a little charm necklace, like a, I don't know if this is showing up good. It's turquoise, I think moonstone, and a little moon. And I don't know, I love turquoise, so I go there when I visit my daughter, and I always admire these. But, you know, I have a lot of jewelry, and I make jewelry some for myself, and I think, well, maybe I should just get a part that I can make into something, you know. I wouldn't have bought it maybe for myself, so she's always seen me eyeing it, and she bought it for me when I thought that was neat. And I think that Nikki uses a lot of stones. Actually, I should have had these ready. Once I went there and I did get these bison teeth. So it's like just sort of the tradition of using all the things, you know, of nature, all the parts of an animal. She has a lot of things made with bone in her shop. So it was, and the teeth actually look, they're polished and they look like stone. And it's an interesting thing too, when you wear something like that, you know, there's a conservation feel to it, but there's also a real great icebreaker, you know, conversation piece. So her shop is full of things like that. So kind of giving her a plug. This is not a Christmas gift, but my daughter, my husband's birthday is around Christmas. She got him a rose of Jericho plant, and a lot of people saw it on Instagram and they had never seen one before. So I wanted to show you this because she got it at the same shop that she got the necklace, and she told me, well, there's some more if you want one for the house, because his was for his desk at work. So I was like, yes, I want one. So she brought it at Christmas, and I want to show it to you before it opens up. So it looks very dry. It looks dead, like a dead shrub, very much like a tumbleweed. I found a tumbleweed when we were in Arizona, taking a trip out west. I found it in like a Denny's parking lot, and I was like, I'm keeping this, because it was blowing through, you know. And we have it like on top of a armoire in the living room. But anyway, that's what this looks like. But when you set it in water for a few days, usually she said within a day it opens up, turns green, and it looks kind of fern-like or like a juniper. So I'm excited to do this. So I wanted to show you the before, and then next time I film, it should be all opened up. I think you just set it in water a few days, and then from that point forward you mist it to keep it open. But you can't kill it except by leaving it in water too long. If you don't water it enough, it just dries back up, which is perfect for me because I have trouble when I do go out of town. There's no one to water there's too many plants here. This one will just take care of itself. It'll close back up if I'm not here to water it. I like that idea. That was just a few kind of crafty gifts. But this one my son made, and about a week before Christmas he told me, don't come in my room. And a few times I would forget, and I would walk in talking. He'd say, "Don't look," and I go, "Ah," you know, cover my eyes and walk out. I heard the sound of drilling. I still don't know what he used to drill for. I thought he was making something with like woodworking. He was making a gift for me and one for my daughter. So when he showed me this on Christmas Day, I completely was not prepared. It's a wire bonsai tree. I'm not sure how well it shows up with the light background behind it, but it's really intricate. So many leaves. I mean, think about all the bending and twisting he had to do on each one. He spent a lot of time. He would stay up late at night working on it. And this root system is great. So he wanted to find a bonsai planter to put it in, but he never could find one. He said some people set them on rocks and they make the roots big enough that they kind of cling to the rock and they kind of hang off, very much like a shrub or a tree would. I just think this is really cool. I'm glad that he took the time to do something creative like that. I mean, it was a lot of work, and it's special that he did it for me and for my daughter, but it's also really good for him because, you know, when you're a student and you're not studying art or something, it's like creative things take a side, they just get pushed aside, and your focus is all on reading the material, taking the tests, and studying. And so his major has nothing to do with, you know, art, and so it's great that he's still getting to do something like that. So the only fiber gift that I received for Christmas was from my friend Frau K. It's a little gnome that she made. See his little jester hat? This is, I think it's Sarah Shira is how you say the name. It's her "Oh Gnome You Didn't" pattern. And it's just really cute. His little hands are in his pockets. There's a little handmade driftwood button. It's really cute. I saw her making these last year, and I thought they were just the cutest thing. But I never knew she was making one for me. And she actually used yarn that I sent her. I had leftovers from different either fingering weight sweater patterns or shawls or socks. And I took some of my favorite ones and I made 2 mini skein sets so that she could do striped socks if she wanted that would be exactly alike. I mean, I measured the grams of each mini skein, everything. And then I wound them up, and it was kind of fun. So this is actually my yarn given back to me. This is the Knob Hill colorway from Knit Picks Hawthorne that I used for my sea glass and driftwood. This is Goth Girl by Jinx Yarns, who she's not dyeing anymore. And this is a Peepaloo Fields colorway called Agave. So that's really special. Oh, I was really, and I got it the day before Christmas. So it was like, I do have a yarny thing under the tree. I was a little nervous that cats would knock it on the floor and then dogs would destroy it, but I put it where they really couldn't do that. So all is well, and now I'm going to keep this in this room by me all the time. If I had a gift for myself, I would say that it was yarn related. I don't need more yarn, so I didn't ask for anything knitting wise for Christmas, but I did do that mini skein Advent set for Mockingbird Fiber Company, and I showed you, I had most of the days the last time, and so these are all of them. Oh, this one came undone. This is really pretty. I love these two next to each other, and the day 12 was just so beautiful. That's just rich looking. So on the Christmas Day, I opened the full skein called the 12 Days of Christmas, and it's basically all of these colors together, very heavy on that plum or purple colorway. But it's all of these in one, and very beautiful. So what I had in mind to make with this Advent calendar was the Adventuring Wrap by Emma O'Brien. And it's a really neat pattern, and I like this version with the fringe on it. and it calls for 24 skeins, mini skeins, the size of these. But since this is a smaller advent calendar, only 12 days, I can use this full skein and possibly like run it between the colors. However, I'm not sure if I want to do it that way. I think the way these look next to each other is really nice. And if I insert this in between them, it will break up some of the flow, which is fine. It's totally fine. It would look good. But I saw that Sarah, a friend online, was going to do this calico quilt shawl. And it's for a 24 skein, mini skein set. And I kind of think I want to do that. And I could just break this large full skein up and knit it several times here and there. And that might unify the whole thing. But I kind of want to do that since I'm losing the flow of color to color anyway. I don't know. I haven't decided. And I'm not going to start on this just yet because of one of my resolutions I made. But anyway, you guys tell me what you think. Which one do you think looks the best? I made Christmas socks and I did finish them. I think I showed you where I'd started them. I finished them on Christmas Day, so I didn't wear them. I waited until everyone left and then I did these. So this is Holly Jolly colorway by A Homespun House. I think this is just one of her fingering sock bases. I don't think, I think it's just merino nylon. I don't believe this is her plump sock. And I used Patton's, or I don't remember who it was, in the comments of, I think 2 episodes ago, said it's pronounced Payton's, not Patton's, which makes sense with one T, like Hatter or Hater. It totally makes sense, but I've heard it said Patton's, and I've been saying it for 20 years, and I don't know that I'll ever be able to change that, but maybe I will. So Payton's Croy in natural. So anyway, I appreciate you telling me I've been saying it wrong all this time. I do that a lot. I say things wrong. You know, you read it and you don't actually say it. And I don't have a lot of in real life friends that I talk about knitting with. So, and I don't hear a lot of people actually talking about, well, they say Patton's Croy. Actually, pretty much most of the people online I've heard talk about Croy, they say Patton's. So weird, huh? We were driving in the car today, and Isla Bonita by Madonna came on the radio, and I was just kind of singing along silly with it. I wasn't really trying. Actually, my voice was super hoarse, so I sounded horrible. And you know, she says, last night I dreamt of San Pedro, and my husband's like, San Pedro? Is that really how it goes? And I was like, yeah. What did you think? He said, I thought she said some Pedro, like just some Pedro, some guy named Pedro. And I thought that was really funny, you know. Last night I dreamt of some Pedro. Payton's. I'll try. So I got to finish these. I just haven't worn them, but I'm showing them to you. I used the Susan B. Anderson Smooth Operator pattern because I put in an afterthought heel. So, there were a lot of sales on sock patterns for Christmas. You know, they do that Advent sock thing on Instagram, and I think I did purchase one, I think from Tracy Miller of The Grocery Girls, one of her patterns. It was called Lazy Afternoon. I purchased that on sale, and I thought it would be fun because you use a striping yarn, but it's not your typical striping pattern. Let me tap it. It's something different to use with self-striping because that can get old to just do, you know, stockinette all the time. But I have a lot of self-striping Croy type yarns, and that would be a fun way to use them. Another person that had a sale, Ambrose Smith, had, I think all of her patterns were $1, I believe. And she has a lot of really good sock patterns. So I thought, you know, $1 pattern is a good way to give a gift to another knitter. especially if you don't get around to cards and stuff. What I did get was her Marianne and Colonel Brandon, Eleanor and Edward socks from her Sense and Sensibility set because they were $1. Here's Marianne. It's just some really great texture. The Colonel Brandon socks, I really liked the way those came out. And I think she does a sale like this. I think she did that last year too. And I believe I got a pattern from her last year. I believe I think she had some that were maybe Agatha Christie themed. So anyway, it was just kind of fun to see these patterns for sale. Isabel Kramer also had a really big sale, and I have so many, and I talked to you about the patterns I have knit, sweater patterns of hers. There are so many in my faves or in my queue, and I don't actually own them. So I went ahead and bought A Hint of Summer, and I think another one was the Pearl Code, both of which I do want to knit in the next year. A Hint of Summer has been on my to knit list for years since it came out. I think it's one that could work as a short-sleeved, kind of oversized summer top in Lindy chain. It could also work, you know, with wool and be a winter sweater, long sleeve. So it has an easy fit to it, and I think that would work for a summer weight project too. So those were just a couple of things I did. And then Guy Glee had a sale on her patterns, and so one that I did purchase one called Debut. She has a lot of patterns for bulky and super bulky yarn, which I just, you know, I have fun knitting those. This one calls for super bulky, and it is really large bell sleeves. This is a hard one to show because it's black. You can see the sleeve there, maybe. Can't really tell. She's wearing black, the model is, but it's cropped like a shrug, sort of, oversized, and then has really, really exaggerated, oversized, straight sleeves. And it looks like it would be just a fun thing to wear over something, to throw over something at home, or if you went somewhere. I also have her book Visions, and this is a pretty recent purchase. I loved it when it came out, when I saw what it was about, the things she does with the knitting. So these are not all like jumbo yarn patterns, but there's quite a few that are. But the things that she does with her knitting, for instance, the splatter paint, I find that kind of exciting and creative. There's ombre dip dye. I love this idea. I want to do this very, very much. But it kind of gets you thinking on how you can tweak stuff. And say you did want to do this and you were afraid, well, what if I mess up? You know, with these jumbo yarn patterns, like super bulky, if you did use a very affordable yarn, it wouldn't be like you broke the bank if you didn't like how it turned out. However, I feel like you couldn't mess up how to do it. And she's got directions on it. Yeah, here's another dip dye on a cabled sweater. So these are really cool. I like the scarf, actually, the shawl and the hat. That's something I want to do. Think about, it doesn't take a lot of yarn to knit a beanie, and test out how you like splatter painting it. Then there's the ones where she actually paints on the sweater. Even more interesting is sweaters that are, they look like colorwork check, but it's actually painted checks. It kind of just opens your mind to what you could do. So anyway, she has a lot of patterns out. You know, she had the Gaptastic cowl or shawl years ago, and has just always been on my radar, and that's somebody whose patterns I really need to knit. I also wanted to talk about a couple of other books that I collected in the last year. So Bristol Ivy's Drape and Fold, that's like her sequel to Knitting Outside the Box. Isn't this beautiful, the sweater on the front? I haven't knit anything asymmetric like that. Like Vera Valmaki has several patterns where the edge is kind of asymmetric, and I've never knit one. I have done some where the back's a little, excuse me, longer than the front. This is really interesting though, this book, because she talks about swatches and shows like different folding techniques that will be used in the book. It's really neat. If you are interested in construction that's different, I just think you would love this. I am interested in knitting the pattern on the front. There's the front of it. There's also, here's a good one that shows you the asymmetric nature of it. It's an unusual shape. It's not just like long in the back, it's the sides that have this drape and flow and a little pocket. And then I also love this Mihara. These are really beautiful photos. Because it crosses in the back. That's just interesting. It almost seems like something, of course she had this all thought out, but it almost looks like a long strip of fabric was made and then someone said, oh, how can I wear this? Oh, let me just fold it and sew it together. It makes me think of origami. This has a lot of elements of construction that are just interesting to me. And there's great, I'm not going to show the diagrams. I don't know that it would matter. There's great diagrams of how all the parts fit together. But I can't show them. So anyway, I think Chaitanya knit this. A sample. Speaking of sample knitting earlier, which is a great way to get your knitting fix and you don't have to collect tons and tons of stuff. She knits a lot of really good samples and she used to work with really great yarn doing it, and I think this was one of hers, and isn't it beautiful? Modern Heritage Knits by Christina Danahy. This one I saw at Michael's. I had ordered it, but on Amazon, I think, but it was at Michael's, which was surprising. There's a lot of great stuff in here that I want to knit. I don't think I've shown this book to you guys. You've probably seen it, but like this Tam, there's some like socks, like worsted weight sock patterns. Worsted weight sock patterns. But the things I'm really most interested in are this summer knit sweater right here. The back is really interesting. I love that lace on the back, like a racer back. That's a very wearable one, right, for me where I live. And then I love this Salo cardigan. The texture on it. It could be knit longer too, if you want it to be longer. Which I might would. I really like this. It's kind of a honeycomb stitch. So there's that one. And then the latest Amarisu, I'm sure you've seen. There's so many good things in this one. But that cover pattern, that rib sweater with that open neck, boy, that makes me think of the 90s. Really does. That takes me back. This has a lot of good interviews too with different makers. Yeah, I like this in Plutolopi, this Weatherall, and this hat. Fleur. I like that too. That looks like a fun knit for a cap. There was also a pom-pom that was actually, I don't think I showed you guys, this was filmed close to where the photos were taken close to where my daughter lives, in an area that we camped and played at when they were young. Now I've totally gone blank. I'm saying Limpassus. It was Peter Nellis. Yeah, I love this Mafati shawl out of this, and the colors along with, look at this cover. just look at the design of it. The way the colors blend with the sky. This was so perfectly done. I'm so impressed with that cover. I think that's one of my favorite covers of Pom Pom. One of my favorite photos they've done. And here, I mean, they use background. You know, you don't have to be in a super beautiful place. If you just have some, you know, because the background's usually blurry, if you just have some colors that contrast or work well with what you're taking a photo of, and they did that so well here. Plus, it's a beautiful place. There's a lot of neat stuff in here, but I love this acre. I like the use of color blocking in a slightly different way. I really do. That's something I think I would like to make sometime. So, yeah. They're always good. Always good. And then I got this book. I wondered if any of you have read it. Salt, Fat, Acid, Heat. We are eating way more veggies than we were previously. Since I'm actually, even when my son is in visiting now, I'm like, look, we just aren't going to be doing meat all the time. My husband and son really like to eat a lot of meat, and they didn't eat a lot of vegetables. Well, now my husband's on board and needs to for his own health, so this book, I don't know how I will apply this, because they've got all sorts of things in here, like using fat and stuff, but just the illustrations are so interesting, and kind of draw you in, whereas a cookbook that focuses on technique rather than individual recipes could become really dry reading. I feel like they divide it up, they draw it out in such a way that it keeps you engaged. So I haven't started it, I haven't looked in it. I mean, I just looked at something briefly. How to make a really good chocolate cake, which is super healthy, right? But I know there's going to be elements I will enjoy and I will glean from this book. So anyway, have any of you used it, and what do you have to say about it? So lots of book review there. That was just kind of a little interruption of everything else with a little bit of book reviewing, pattern reviewing. But I did ask you in the last episode what your Christmas Eve cast-ons, or in my case, Christmas Day cast-ons were going to be, and you told me. Jen was trying hurriedly to finish her Christmas Eve cast-on was a Sanguine sweater by Morgan Waltersdorf, and she wanted to hurry and get it done by the end of the year. She did it. She did it. It's lovely. I will show you what the worsted Sanguine looks like. This is a sweater. The original Sanguine, I think, is Sport or DK, and I have the Sport or DK version of it. I really do want to knit this. Look how fun. What fun use of colors. The DK one, let me see if I have a photo of it. Yeah, in lighter colors. Just a lot of fun. I like this color palette a lot. So anyway, so I was her cast on, Christmas Eve cast on. It was also her New Year's Day cast off. Rolla, I don't know if it's Rolla or Rolla, says Christmas socks. That's a no-brainer cast on for her for the new year, or for Christmas Eve. And that's like my holly jolly. I was trying to get them done for Christmas. Amanda is working on a shawl, and Rolla was saying a hat for her granddaughter. I Heart Cables, which is a free pattern on Ravelry. And so this is for her granddaughter, what she's knitting. And I don't know the colors she's using, but that looks like a really fun knit and something that could be done pretty quickly. Those giant cables, those big 3D cables are so much fun to work to me. Amy was saying maybe something like a Susan B. Anderson gnome, or something to decorate the Christmas tree is a good Christmas Eve cast on for her. I thought about Frau K's gnome, you know, when I read that. Susan B. Anderson has a lot of stuffed animal knits, but have you guys seen any of Claire Garland's almost live looking animal knits? They are so unusual. Like, this little bunny is so sweet, but there's so many of them. They are all so sweet. This looks like something straight out of Beatrix Potter. I think this would be the sweetest gift with a Beatrix Potter book. So cute. That's so sweet. Yeah, I could see getting a lot of satisfaction making this with no child in my life, just for the fun of making it and the use of color. So anyway, that just made me think of it. And on Instagram, there is a account, and my daughter showed it to me, Felted Friends. That is something you could get lost in. You can send in a photo of your pet, and they will make a felted version of your dog or your cat. Look at this. This is the one my daughter sent me to show me. So there's the real dog, and there's the baby felted one. It's so cute. That's a nice gift to make for someone. But you know, if you got good at needle felting, you could do it yourself. Anyway, not exactly what you were talking about, Amy. You were talking about Christmas decor, but it sent me on that little wild goose chase there. Christy was saying that she was knitting a Bellish raglan. So Bellish is actually I think I have it here, a sweater pattern that can be adapted and modified. She's been working on it, and her new cast on, though, she was trying to finish that one. Her new cast on would be a bulky weight kava capelet for her daughter, which sounds nice. It is like a little cowl and capelet that comes to up here down to about here. And let's see what the kava looks like. Apparently, Christy, you just went at it yourself and customized it. I guess you didn't do the lace at the bottom. I don't know if this is showing up for you guys. It's really dark. Have you seen Ninja Chicken's? This is a long cape, her seer cape. It's a really lovely colorwork pattern at the edge, and the photos are so good. Filmed in the woods there, and you know she lives in the woods. She's got the perfect backdrop around her for these photos. That's Maria of Ninja Chicken's podcast. I really appreciated that, the photo shoot to go with her pattern. So Christy, you're doing that. You've already finished, apparently. Jay Henderson was working on the sleeves of her poet sweater when she watched my last episode. You're probably done by now. Denise is working on a striped eschin. I don't know if that's how you say it, by Stephen West. And she's actually using colors similar to the Homespun House colors, Minty and Lincoln, that I showed in the last episode. I was going to make striped socks for next Christmas with. This is going to be her first Stephen West knit, and that's a little knitting goal of mine, to knit a Stephen West pattern this year. It feels like something that should have happened already in my life. So my Christmas Eve cast on, or Christmas Day cast on, sorry. I was still working on my Holly Jolly on Christmas Eve. My Christmas Day cast on was my Odeline socks by Melanie of Braid and Tinker. So, here we go. I had a finished one. I'm almost finished with the second, but I will just show you the first. This was a lot of fun. It's got a serious cable in here. Something, I haven't done any cabling like this, I don't think, before. A really nice sock, and you know, it's sized in such a way, like it's not a tight fit. It really feels good. I did the smallest size. This is done in Mockingbird Fiber Company's rustic sock base. It was just a one-of-a-kind colorway, but it was green, and I love green, and so it's tweedy. It looks really nice. I have so much enjoyed working on these socks. And I've gotten to where I do a German cast on. I think it's German cast on every time I do socks, if I remember, because I just like the way it looks best. So this was my Christmas Eve cast on, and Melanie has the Braid and Tinker podcast. You can see information about it in her more recent episodes, but this pattern is really good. And the thing, I love her layout. It's so cute. It's kind of like a newspaper. I've just not seen anyone do something like that. There's a lot of creativity that went into not just the designing of the pattern, but even the layout of how she put it on paper. I really thought that was special and just unique with all the glut of patterns we see today. For something to stand out like that, it's kind of special. So I worked on that sock a lot. I told you I thought I would watch some of those old science fiction shows that make me think of Christmas this year. I actually didn't watch either Planet of the Apes or Battlestar Galactica. Believe it or not, I didn't do that for Christmas. I've been rewatching the last Airbender cartoons, Avatar, with my son when he happens to be at home and will humor me. Because that's special. Like, I watched that with my children when they were younger, and they got me to watch it because they had seen it, and I enjoyed it so much with them. If you've never watched it, it is like an anime cartoon, but it's very universal. Anyone would love the story. You don't have to be a child to enjoy it. So I worked on my Odeline socks quite a bit while watching the first season of that. And so what you guys said you have been watching, Elle said that a series of unfortunate events and Sex in the City were two things that she would think of watching, during the holiday season, which is, I guess I can see series of unfortunate events, but Sex in the City, where do you get that? But, I said Planet of the Apes. So Louise said When Harry Met Sally. She tends to watch that every year. Lori said they don't really do movies. Like, she doesn't have any movies that the family does, but they do gather for games. And Wits and Wagers is a big one. And a new one is Chicken Foot Dominoes, which I've never played. I've never played either. I've heard Wits and Wagers is a lot of fun, but we've just never done it. Denise Daniels says Harry Potter also, just like us, My son rewatched it last year with a girlfriend, but I haven't seen it. It's been 2 years. Now, I think your name is pronounced Macon. You said Sound of Music. That's very much. And Lord of the Rings, both are shows kind of like Harry Potter. They're often shown at Christmas time on television. And so it triggers Christmas feelings in us. Sound of Music definitely does for me too. Amanda said that Fred Astaire movies make her think of Christmas. She would watch those with her daughter. And especially Holiday Inn, they would watch that around this time of year. So that's sweet. I've never seen one Fred Astaire movie. I've seen clips of him. I don't think I've watched one movie of his all the way through. So that may be something interesting for me to try. I did, The Expanse is now an Amazon television show. It's not on Sci-Fi anymore, and they had a new season come out, and I'm disappointed in it. Because, I love those books. It's really a good series. I'm disappointed. I feel like they cut out a lot to simplify, but it was things they didn't have to. I feel like they blanded down a lot of the characters, and honestly, the language is really rough. Like, it's the F-bomb every other word. Every character is saying it. It's not like that in the book. And here's the thing about that. Some people don't care. I couldn't watch that with younger children. I feel weird watching it with adult children. But while they're busy saying this, there was really good potential scripting in the book. I mean, there are good lines in the book, and I'm wondering, why would they forego saying things that are so clever just to have someone, you know, just say something kind of common. So I was a little disappointed. The language thing is the least of the disappointing things about it. They really, I don't know what they're doing. I don't know why they're doing it. They're sticking with the story basically, but I just feel like you need to read the books. You don't need to watch the show first. I also saw the new Little Women movie with my husband, and we enjoyed that. The only seats open were the front row, so we were like looking up like this. But by the end of the movie, so that he could watch it comfortably, I guess, he had scooted so far down in his seat that the only thing rested on the back of the seat was his head. His whole body was like way in front of him. So weird. But we did enjoy it. It's really good. What's her name? The Ronan chick who plays Jo. She was in Lady Bird, and I'd seen that recently. She's a good actress. I thought everybody did really well in that, and they did a pretty good job. I love the book, and no movie will ever beat the book, but of the movies I've seen, which is really just this one and the Winona Ryder one, this one is definitely the best. So that might be a show I associate with Christmas from now on, because we, you know, this time of year. So when we were at the movie, I needed a good movie knit, and I had this LB collection, which is the Swanky Lion Brand Merino and Camel wool. This was one of those kits I told you I got for Alexandra Tavel pattern. It's for her Voyager hat, which is just going to be a almost gnome-like beanie. And I just did the tutu ribbing. Nothing special. It does feel like it's big, you know, like it's not going to be, not going to be tight enough. And I am knitting 2 or 3 needle sizes down, and I'm knitting as tightly as my wrist will let me. But not everyone wears, like, I'm used to doing beanies so they wouldn't fall off when I would run, and so they'd be a little tighter. Most people don't want their head all smushed and their hair smushed down. I mean, I really don't want hat head, so I'm going to stick with it a little more, and if it doesn't work, I might pull out maybe 4 stitches and see what happens, you know, reduce the stitch count, see if it will affect. I've got to read the pattern and see if it affects shaping. But that's something I'm doing, and I was enjoying working on that. So, a thing I want to do this year is knit those kits from her patterns that I got from Lion Brand. I want to knit several of her patterns. I enjoy, I told you in the last episode, I enjoy her use of Lion Brand in making a more affordable yarn that often has acrylic in it still look good. Not like crunchy acrylic. And I also like the easy style of so many of the things she has. So that's something I definitely want to do this year. So Jennifer Beal has her knit along starting. Her 2020 knit along is began the first of the year, and she's having a sale. It's like 25% off on all of her patterns, and she just had a new one, Step Aside, come out, and it's so good. If you go to her Ravelry group, and I think she's J Knit Beal. That's her Instagram, and I think that's her Ravelry name. Also, but you can look up Jennifer Beal and then, you know, go to her designer page and find her username. Anyway, her group, it's Jennifer or J Knit Beal. I don't know what it's called. I don't know the name of her group, official name. You can find it on Ravelry, and she has directions to it on her Instagram also. But she's offering that coupon code. And her knit along, there's some good prizes. I just mainly want to do it because I want to be, you know, it just gets me started on the sweater. I need to get at least 2 things finished before I will allow myself to start that. I'd like it to be 2 sweaters. So this is Wool of the Andes Sport in Currant, Papaya, and White. And the pattern I want to knit is Badger with this. So white and currant will be the predominant colors, and then there's some accents of papaya. A new friend online on Instagram who watched the podcast told me that she test knitted this, and she said it comes out kind of cropped, and so she made hers longer. Like, she did an extra repeat. And she might have used the Moeke yarns for this, that this called for. I'm not using mine for this, but she did say it would be good to really test the darker colors for color fastness, because she had some bleeding in her. So I'm going to think about that before I do use my Moeke yarns, but I don't think I'll have a problem. Now, you know what? I might. This currant color is so dark. I've used it before and I didn't notice any bleeding for Phoenix, but I'm not sure. I might need to. Oh, it's so much trouble though with so many little balls of yarn. I do, when I wash my hand knits though, I put some vinegar in the water to try and keep the color in. But here's the new one, Step Aside, that you've probably seen. Jennifer has so many interesting constructions and shapes where she adds in color work in unexpected ways. This is unexpected. And that's a big front pocket, like kind of like that Agnes sweater I was talking about, where it had kind of the front pockets almost like a muff in front. That's what this has. It's so cute. So it's kind of a boxy shape, but I really, really like this geometric ferrule, stranded work on it. That's something I really do want to do. And I want to use the stash. So this yarn has been in my stash for a bit, but with Badger in mind. So from now on, I want to try and raid stash for projects. We may be moving from this house. I don't want to move a bunch of yarn. Just like I talked to you guys about how are you handling the abundance of sweaters as you start making them, or shawls or scarves or whatever. I mean, certainly we make gifts, but we also end up collecting quite a bit for ourselves, especially in a warm climate. I'm not wearing them a ton. So I wanted to talk about your ideas for dealing with all these knits that you've collected, and not really just knits, but memory stuff in general, because I told you how my garage is the place I need to tackle next with an organization and a decluttering. But it's not just decluttering. I need to let go of kind of a feeling of responsibility that I'm keeping the family memories. Like, not so much for my little family. I don't think anyone cares about that, but like, for my grandmother or my dad, I've had 3 relatives pass away, and I've gotten, furniture and things that, were I to live in a different house, I might could use, but this is where I am. Of course, I may not be here long, but some of your ideas though on dealing with that. And I want you to know, I've gone through my knits since I had that sweater episode a few times. Like, I had them like in a box, and the things that didn't fit me in boxes in the garage, and I go through and I set them aside for giving away. And every once in a while I go through and I do it again as I'm organizing things in the garage, because I think it's a process of kind of letting go of certain things in memory stuff. I've done the same with some linens and just family memorabilia. So Lynn said that she reevaluated her style, and she thought it was, she found that like neat techniques or details in a pattern would be what would draw her, and she would knit the pattern, but the actual finished object wasn't something that was her style. Like, she wouldn't wear it. I did that too. You could see, of course, I didn't know quite what my knitting style was when I began. I was trying lots of different things. But a lot of those things just don't work for me now, beyond things not fitting. So she was saying, she's reevaluating what she makes. Wait, will I actually use this? Because why create another thing you have to keep up with and store if you're not even going to use it? Now, there is a legitimate benefit to creating something because you enjoy it. And to me, that's the kind of thing, this is an interesting technique, I want to try it, I just don't want this for myself. That's when it's great to give it to somebody. Or ask someone online, hey, who wants this? You pay shipping, I'll give it to you. That kind of thing. I was thinking though, when I see an element in a pattern that interests me, but I think I probably won't wear that, or maybe it's too heavy, or whatever the reasoning is, that might be a good time to try fiddling with patterns. Mash the two together. Add that detail to something that would work for you, Lynn. Or maybe make up your own sweater or accessory pattern that features that design element. That would be a neat way to challenge myself. And it kind of fits in with what Elle says, that she said if you are knitting so much so fast that you end up with too much stuff, she said you could always design sweaters. That seems to slow people down, and that's true. You find that people, when they're designing, they don't have time to knit other people's stuff. I don't necessarily want to be a knitwear designer or anything, but it would be like, just when I made that sweater for fun in the Winging It Cal, that was all I worked on for a really long period of time. I could have read a couple of patterns and knit 2 or 3 sweaters in the amount of time it took to work on that. So say you want to try some little design element, but you don't like the look of the pattern that it's in, put it in your own thing and make it up, and it's creative, and it kind of slows down the knitting process, and probably benefits you in lots of ways, creatively, mentally. Elle's also said that she knits commissions, and they don't even go in, they don't go into her wardrobe. She's knitting it for other people. That's a good idea too. I know some people knit as sample knitters, and then after they knit it, they give it sometimes, and that's a good idea. Also, a way to knit on something that's current or interesting to you, but you don't have to keep it forever. I mean, no one has to keep the stuff they make forever, but if you feel kind of sentimental about it, just from the start, knowing this is for someone else, this benefits them. She also said you could give things as gifts or sell them on eBay, which is always true. She was suggesting more wearable yarns like cotton and linen. Also, those things store smaller. They pack smaller, right? Because they're not big and bulky. But also, I would be wearing them more and not needing to store them. So that's, of course, that's true, Els. But I think you've seen that I know I need to knit more summer wear. Christy said that she's trying to make only things that she'll wear. So she loves shawls. She loves the look of them, the patterns, the designs, but she just doesn't wear them, so she just doesn't make them. Mostly it's cardigans for her. That she lives in a warm climate. She can throw a cardigan over if she's cool. She's also going to frog and re-knit with any good, like she has some Wool in the Gang things that she has made, like Love Me Tender. She was going to frog it and reuse that yarn because it's wool yarn. Just looking at her Ravelry page helped her see, ew, I don't even like that on me, or I don't wear that. That's a good idea to go back and look through our projects page and say, I'm not going to wear that. Or, in my case, that doesn't even fit me. Where is that? I need to get rid of that. That kind of thing. If you don't know what I'm talking about, like having trouble keeping sweaters from years gone by, that long episode 41, that sweater episode, I just had a bunch from way back when, and they were sentimental, some of them, because they were my first sweaters, but my first Pharaoh, my first this, my first that, but it's time to let go of those things. Also, when you have a big garage, it's easy to just, I'll deal with that later and push it aside. Well, I'm dealing with it all now. So I'm not just a crazy person who has to keep every shred of everything from the last 20 years. And Christy also asked everyone here, what is a good basic sock pattern? She is wanting to start socks. So if you can think of one, please leave the message in YouTube. Christy, I like Susan B. Anderson for Afterthought socks. I really like her Smooth Operator sock pattern. And then for a regular, a lot of cuff down patterns with a traditional heel turn. I feel like they're all so similar. Just something that doesn't have a lot of bells and whistles. So I was thinking the Kia sock pattern was one that was it's got an interesting design to it, but it's not a lot of new techniques to keep up with. I know that there was my favorite sock, that Vine pattern, and there's a vanilla sock pattern out that's free by somebody. A lot of designers or dyers have a free pattern out to encourage you to buy their yarn and knit this sock pattern. I liked Danny George's 'Twas the Night Before Christmas pattern. You don't have to do the trees on it. You don't have to do that. Just ignore that and just keep knitting straight stockinette all the way up. I just liked her heel directions. I thought they were different to avoid gaps where your gusset is. So those are just my ideas. So Jay Henderson has spent the last few weeks digitizing old photos and slides from the last 20 years. So these memories, she said, are only meaningful when you have someone to share them with. They're not as meaningful if they're just stored somewhere. Sharing is the thing, not the memory itself. It's the sharing of it that's special. And she had lived in fear of fire or flood and all of those things being destroyed. Well, now that they're digitized, she can hand them out, like say thumb drives, to family members, other people who will enjoy those memories. And, you know, if something happens, if hers gets ruined, she could always retrieve them from someone else. Plus, they're shared that way. And I think I had mentioned I really want to scan a lot of my kids' memories. I still have family photos to scan and get them out on thumb drives, hard drives, whatever, because that's too much stuff to be keeping. If my children don't want it, I just can't keep it forever, and I certainly can't move with all of it. She also mentioned that she moved from the Scottish Highlands to an industrialized area in England, and she has had asthma and breathing problems since moving. I really do think that that's part of my problem. We had that explosion, and I don't know if you can hear it in my voice, but I am going to not be able to speak later tonight from doing this podcast. And then I sang in church, not by myself, not in front of everyone. Oh, please no. Just regular singing, and oh my goodness, I don't think my voice has ever struggled so much. But see, this time of year, they're burning the marshes around here, and the smell of smoke is so strong outside, and everybody's eyes are watering. We're all, having to deal with the crud of that. So did you know that refinery, we can drive past it now on the road right in front of it and see where it's all charred and there's just all this bent metal folded in on itself. They are still spraying water on that. Like, there's no active fire, but I don't know what they're spraying the water on. That weirds me out. They're pumping the water in from the river close to my house, because the way I actually run over the hoses. They're huge. They've buried them under the road. That's weird. Anyway, I appreciate your mentioning that, because that is obviously an issue for me, and that's part of why we are just looking at a different area. Lori said that she sold a third of her stash last year because she was anticipating a move, actually a few moves. And so she used the buy-sell group in Ravelry and sold about a third of it. She, if she has knitwear she doesn't wear anymore, she always gives it away and finds it fun to get a text from somebody where they have a picture of themselves wearing something you gave them. I totally agree, and I have no problem giving away some of the knits, but some of the ones I showed you guys, they're really dated, and or I don't know anyone who could fit in them. Some of them, even when I was 20 years ago, I was very thin, they didn't fit me well. Like, they might pinch here at the arms or whatever. So I think from this point forward, most of my knits are knit to a correct size. And so I think it will be easier to give them away. And like accessories, that's an easy thing to give away. And I actually did that at Christmas time. gave some things away. Macon said that she just finished this was her Christmas cast off. She was finishing a Norwegian cardigan, and she said kofte. I don't know how you say kofte. I guess that means cardigan in Norwegian, but if I looked it up, and there's a ton of patterns that came up, this is one I saw. I thought that was kind of a sweet pattern, but I doubt that's the one you're doing, especially if it's traditional. I'm thinking it's something more like the Marius. That's one that I've seen a lot of people knit in recent years. That's a really great classic design. So anyway, I don't, Meg and I wonder which one you knit. I need to look and see if I can find you on Ravelry. Anyway, she's been overwhelmed with whips and unfinished objects. So for her, it's no new Christmas Eve cast on. She wants to use up what she's got. So she doesn't want to finish a whip, just frog it and put the yarn into some sort of granny stripe blanket or something, which is a great idea. No new purchases for her. So I wanted to show you guys my progress, which probably hasn't grown since the last time because I was trying to finish those Christmas socks. But this is my granny stripe blanket that I am doing with Andrea Jimenez from the, she's the Knitpicky on Instagram. She's also part of Mockingbird Fiber and on the Mockingbird Fiber podcast. We are doing the Scrappy Blanket Make-Along, and it's going to be going on like all year. Super laid back. Several of you have joined. I haven't looked in the last few days, and I haven't been answering comments quickly because I've been sick. It's probably all this marsh business. But we're doing that, and several of you have joined in. I'm going to look after this and see who else has joined in. But please, if you're doing any kind of scrappy blanket, it can be knitted or crocheted. This is my second granny stripe blanket to do, but the first in fingering weight, and the first one for me. And so here's my progress thus far, and it is going to be maybe queen size, at least full size. My bed is one that is like I don't have a, it's like we made slats for the base and put hairpin legs on it, and then we have a foam mattress. So it's sort of like futon-like. It's not got a lot of depth as far as mattresses go, so I don't want something to go really far over the side. I also like for the hairpin legs to show, so I didn't want to do like a traditional queen bedspread size. However, I have boxes of knitwear underneath it, so I probably should be hiding that because it doesn't look so great. Anyway, I'm using Attic 24's pattern, and I'm using some blue-green colorways every few rows just to kind of tie it all together, because that is a color of one wall in my room. It's like this bright, vivid kind of turquoise looking color. So this is just all my leftover sock yarn. I am really enjoying it, plus minis that I was given. And I made a magic cake, which I show in the last episode. I'm not going to pull it up. It's getting rattier and rattier the more I handle it. But that's been a fun thing to work on. And I say more power to you, Macon, for doing putting your leftovers into a granny stripe blanket. That's smart. And what you said about feeling overwhelmed with your whips, I haven't been feeling overwhelmed, but if I look around the house, I have a little sack of, a project bag here, a little project bag there, with different things that need to be finished. And one is a particularly big bag, taking up room, which means when I finish it, it's going to be taking up room in my wardrobe. My Winston by Jane Richmond. I waited on another ball of this sea glass colorway. I have it. It's one of those big mega ones, so I can actually, I'm almost finished with one sleeve. This is a big deal to pull out. It is a big mess. So I'm doing the seed stitch version, moss stitch version. I'm alternating skeins to try and stop the striping of it. There's a bit of pooling and striping, but it's not too bad. It really wants to stripe on these sleeves, so I am trying to switch out the colors pretty often. And I'm almost done with this sleeve. It's really a quick knit. But I've made it too short, as you can see. I did that because it looked like I was going to run out of yarn, and then when it was clear I couldn't even do sleeves, I went ahead and bought an extra ball. And so I think I can add a couple of inches in length, and that's what I really want to do. This is going to be an oversized cozy sweater. It needs to just go ahead and be that, and not, you know, weirdly oversized. Like, I have monkey arms here, but the rest of it's ill-fitted or cropped or something. So that's the first whip from days gone by. When it comes to saving our stuff, Amanda had said that if a thing, like say the things I talked about, like the photos or the things in my garage, are what anchors a memory in my mind, if I lose or give away the thing, will the memory start to fade? And that's something that's kind of scary to her, you know, like, sort of like if you have a lot of memories preserved in photos and you were to lose your sight so you could no longer see them, would you start to forget those times in your life? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. But I do have someone I would like to ask about that particularly, if their remembrance of things has changed since they lost their sight. Because I know we rely on all of our senses. A lot of us very dominantly rely on our sense of sight, but all of them come into play. The other day I got a little stocking stuffer rollerball perfume, and I put it on, and then I put on my hand cream that was almond scented, and the combination of the two smelled just like something my sister used to wear when I was a girl and we shared a room. And she's a little older than me, so you know, she wore perfume a lot, and it took me back. I mean, I got hit by such deja vu. That was a scent. So all of our senses come into play, plus our emotional memory of times in our life. And so many of our memories play through our mind. They are not something we can actually see unless we have a photograph. I don't know. I wonder, I don't plan to part with photographs, but I do plan to part with quite a bit of stuff. But Amanda, I thought that was an interesting thought. If we lose the anchor, the thing that seems to anchor the memory, will the memory start to fade? I can tell you that my memories are already fading without losing the anchor. And I think it's because I put too much stuff in my head with social media, the news, Netflix. You know, we watch so much stuff that we have constant information going in, and where is all that sweet memories going? Or it could just be aging. I'm over 40. Maybe that's it. I also think I blame a lot of things on hormone imbalance. I do think when I had that hormone imbalance, I had serious memory impairment for a bit. You know, like it was an estrogen issue. But that seems better, and yet I notice my memory has dulled. And my husband, who doesn't seem to remember anything, is reminding me of stuff. So I'm wanting to try to start writing some things down to preserve at least how I remember certain things. And I wondered, you know, Rolla said that at the age of 20, she had to flee her home because of a Turkish invasion. She lives in the Middle East, and some of her friends are still missing from that time period. They don't know where they are. And so she had to leave everything. So all of her memories that are tied to her past, like I'm talking about, like school photos, you know, family mementos, they're all still there, and she can't be there. She cited the smell of citrus, or her mother's lace work, or the smell of bread baking. These are memories of home, and they're all gone to her. They're still there. However, they're not completely gone if you can recall them, and you shared them with us. So it's kind of interesting that those memories are a bit alive with us, though we didn't experience it. But Rolla, have you tried preserving what you can of your past? Have you written it down? Have you? There's other ways to kind of remember something, talking about it, writing it down, painting something you remember, drawing it, things like that. Have you tried anything that would help you to cement those memories? I just wondered, because as I'm getting older, my memories are fading of the past, and I think, okay, I have other people I can talk to about them, but you don't forever. And most of my older family members are gone now. So I just wondered how you were handling that, if you had tried writing some things down and preserving them. Jay Henderson had said that the sharing of the memory is more important than the memory itself. I think that's true when it's shared memories, like say between siblings. It's extra special when you both remember the same things. But then there are some things that no one will really get but you, and it's special to you. And you can share it with others, but just holding it it's meaningful. So anyway, Rhoda, if you want to share in the comments, I would be interested. And your prayer is for peace. Absolutely. It makes the talk of what am I going to knit? And oh my gosh, I have all these sweaters. What am I going to do with my sweaters? Sounds so silly, doesn't it? When you're thinking about this war-torn area and what your family lost. And I mean, as a refugee, what have your struggles been, So, and I don't even know how old you are. You said that happened when you were 20. I have no idea how long ago that was. That's sobering. I do want peace for you. I want you to have a joyful year with complete peace. And I do hope that you find a way to preserve and relish the memories you have, because you have been cheated of those reminders, those little things, and those inanimate objects that we all surround ourselves with because it makes us comfortable, and we think about this person and that person. And then you have the memories of war, which are awful on top of just losing everything. But I do hope you find a way to preserve your memories that's maybe even kind of therapeutic. But share some, if you don't mind, in the comments, or message me and share some of how you deal with that, with the past and memories and retaining it. Shouldn't we all want to just grab hold of our memories and retain them, the good things? I guess what I'm saying is taking a moment to just really revel in a memory, a good memory, a peaceful memory, a sweet memory. We're so busy collecting them, and sometimes, like Amanda was talking about, storing them in an anchor, this thing that reminds us of it. But how often are we really reviewing them? Are we so busy with everyday stuff that we're not actually pulling those memories out like we would a photo and just feeling grateful? So anyway, so one of my goals is definitely to take some time for gratitude, to write down some of the things that I've experienced, particularly in home life, my early adult life. I left home early, and the situation wasn't great, and I became a mom young, and just there were some hard times, but some good times and all of that. And I don't want to start losing the edge on my memories. I don't want them to fade. I have more. I'd like you, if you don't mind, to, in the comments, tell me what some of your goals for the upcoming year are. Craft goals, but also personal goals. And I have some of both. And some of them kind of merge and work together. Let me know. And, if you've never commented before, that's great, because now I'll get to know you through your craft goals and your personal goals for the year. But if you have before, you might go back and look and see what you commented last year and the one before for your New Year's kind of resolutions or goals, and see, hey, how did I do on that? No shame if you didn't complete them. I hope you guys have a great week, and I hope I get back to you really quick with another episode and more stuff that we talk about making. See you later. Bye.